good harmonium. Ready? Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Grantaraj ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatyate Satarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivindam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Itai Gaur Premanandi Ki Jai. So we're continuing today in Canto 6, Chapter 2. And we're going to read beginning chapter 2. I think we left off on I think we left off on Canto 6, Chapter 2, verse number 5 and 6. So we're continuing in the story of Ajamil. This is a very important story. It's not just a story, it's a real thing that happened in history. And it's very instructive to understand how it's very important not to be influenced by bad association. It can throw a person's life off the rails for the rest of their life and go from being a good person to a bad person. So, Canto 6, Chapter 2, verses 5 and 6. People in general are not very advanced in knowledge by which to discriminate between religion and irreligion. The innocent, unenlightened citizen is like an ignorant animal sleeping in peace with its head on the lap of its master, faithfully believing in the master's protection. If a leader is actually kind-hearted and deserves to be the object of a living entity's faith, how can he punish or kill a foolish person who has fully surrendered in good faith and friendship? So this last sentence of these two verses is a rhetorical question. That means the answer is evident. So it's asking, if a leader is actually kind-hearted and deserves to be the object of a living entity's faith, how can he punish or kill a foolish person who has fully surrendered in good faith and friendship? So that's assuming that the person that you surrender to is a person of good faith and is going to protect you. You see, it's just like someone buys a cow and they feed the cow every day, clean up the poop, but their intention is to eventually kill the cow and eat it. So the cow takes shelter of that person and has certain faith that the person is going to protect them. But actually, that person has no desire to protect the cow. They're just making it fatty so they can kill it and eat it. So when this verse starts off, it says, people in general are not very advanced in knowledge by which to discriminate between religion and irreligion. The innocent, unenlightened citizen is like an ignorant animal sleeping in peace with its head on the lap of its master, faithfully believing in the master's protection. So, unless we learn very early on in our life the difference between a religious person and an irreligious person, the difference between a good person and a bad person, the difference between a person that we can trust and a person we can't trust, we might end up depending on a person who actually will destroy us rather than protect us. So the purport, Prabhupada says, the Sanskrit word visvastagata refers to one who breaks faith or causes a breach of trust. The mass of people should always feel security because of the government's protection. Therefore, how regrettable it is for the government itself to cause a breach of trust and put the citizens in difficulty for political reasons. We actually saw during the partition, he's talking about the partition of India into Pakistan and India. He said, we actually saw during the partition days in India that although Hindus and Muslims were living together peacefully, manipulation by politicians suddenly aroused feelings of hatred between them, and thus the Hindus and Muslims killed one another over politics. This is a sign of Kali Yuga. In this age, animals are kept nicely sheltered, completely confident that their masters will protect them. But unfortunately, as soon as the animals are fat, they are immediately sent for a slaughter. Slaughter meaning they're immediately sent to be killed. Such cruelty is condemned by Vaishnavas like the Vishnudutas. Indeed, the hellish conditions already described await the sinful men responsible for such suffering. One who betrays the confidence of a living entity who takes shelter of him in good faith, whether that living entity be a human being or an animal, is extremely sinful. Because such betrayals now go unpunished by the government, all of human society is terribly contaminated. The people of this age are therefore described as manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hi upadruta. As a consequence of such sinfulness, men are condemned, manda. Their intelligence is unclear, sumanda mataya. They are unfortunate, manda bhagya, and therefore they are always disturbed by many problems, upadruta. This is their situation in this life, and after death, they are punished in hellish conditions. Well, we have to be very, very careful then to learn as early as possible in our life to discriminate between a good person and a bad person. A person who's trustworthy, who's worthy of our trust, and a person who we cannot trust. A person who will protect us rather than a person who will exploit us or kill us. So this is the challenge of life, to have that discriminative power. And by reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam, we learn how to discriminate between good people and bad people, between honest people and dishonest people, between trustworthy people and people that we cannot trust. So, in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's a description of demoniac people. It begins with a description of a genuine devotee 16th chapter 1 to 3, explains a genuine devotee. But after that, from 4th verse onward to the end of the chapter, explains the symptoms of unclean and impure people. So the 16th chapter, 11th and 12th verse says, in describing these unclean, impure people, they believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. So, what is the immediate quality of a person, or attribute of a person, or attitude of a person who is not really trustworthy? They believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. In other words, they're spending their whole life gratifying their senses. And therefore, what happens to such people? It says, thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. They're always in anxiety. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The demoniac accept that the enjoyment of the senses is the ultimate goal of life. And this concept they maintain until death. So, one test of whether you can trust another person is ask them, what's the goal of your life? And they'll say, oh, well, the goal of my life, I want to get a good job, and I want to get good money, and I want to be able to spend it on things that make me happy. Well, that sounds normal, doesn't it? But actually, it's not normal. If that's the goal of that person's life, then they'll become a thief. What's a thief? A thief steals someone that belongs to somebody else. So, if we look at this question from the Krishna conscious point of view, then a person who answers, well, I want to work, I'm willing to work hard and make money so I can buy whatever I need for my own happiness. That means that they're going to be stealing from Krishna, because everything belongs to Krishna. But they're not going to be offering things to Krishna. They'll be offering them to him or herself. That means they're very selfish, and all bad habits will evolve from that first point, which is, I want to be happy, get good grades so I can get a good job and make money. Well, if you ask a genuine devotee, what is your purpose in life? He or she will say, I want to dedicate my life to serving Krishna and helping others understand their relationship with Krishna so that they can go back to Godhead at the end of life. Well, therefore, there's two answers that we just went over. The materialistic person says, I want to be happy, I want to get training to get a good job, make money, and spend it on trying to be happy, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Well, that's an animal-like theory of what the purpose of life is. And the devotee, if it's a sincere devotee, they'll say, yeah, I want to get married eventually, so I have to learn about Grihastha Ashram. I'm going to try and imbibe all that knowledge, and eventually, I will use the money for my happiness, material happiness, that is. So, and even if the person gives in charity, the charity is also done with the idea of supporting their social position in the eyes of the public, not done for serving Krishna. So therefore, you have the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, Bill Gates has made a lot of money, and he's continuing to make a lot of money. And he and his wife have made this foundation where they distribute money for what they consider worthy causes, like finding vaccines for malaria, and then for AIDS, and then for COVID, and then inoculating people, vaccinating people in Africa and poor countries, and trying to help people that are in poverty or starving. So it all sounds good, and it is partially good in some sense. He's not a super greedy person, and he's trying to use some of his wealth to help other people that are less fortunate than he is. But it's all based on the body, and nothing spiritual. In fact, his most latest statement to the public was that he's going to start eating artificially produced meat in order to save the environment. In other words, they get some genes or something from a living animal, and they produce meat in a laboratory. So he thinks, well, this is like ahimsa meat. I'm not killing the animal, and we don't need, so many cows like this, because the cows pass bad air. By the way, they don't pass bad air from their backside; they pass bad air from their mouth. Their body is different than our body, and they claim that all the bad air that they pass through the mouth is polluting the environment with methane gas and causing global warming, etc. This, of course, is their theory, but Gates's point of view. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad guy. He's actually a good person in many, many, many ways. He's a very generous person. He's definitely not a greedy money maker. He makes money working very hard, and he takes care of his employees. There's no doubt about it. And he's very charitable. Microsoft is probably one of the most charitable for-profit businesses in the world. But all that charity goes toward the body, and there's no real spiritual goal. Okay, is it a bad thing to help people that are less fortunate? No, it's not a bad thing, but that doesn't solve their problem. Just like there's a saying, if someone is hungry and I can deliver free food to them, but if I teach that person how to grow his own food, then that solves the problem of hunger. Simply delivering free food doesn't solve the problem of hunger. But teaching another person how to grow their own food, that would solve the problem of hunger permanently. And you don't even need land to do that. You can, even if you're homeless, you can sprout seeds in a backpack and produce your own food, or at least 60 to 80% of your own food needs by growing seeds, sprouting seeds in your backpack. I teach that to people. In fact, I'm going to teach it to people today in Shoreline. So if you teach a person, and then if you teach them on top of all that how to offer their food first to Krishna, and then wait till the offering is done, and then respect the offering that Krishna gives back as prasadam, that also contributes to solving your problem permanently. The one solution is to learn to grow your own food, even if it's only sprouts because you don't have land. Second problem is you're going to die and take birth again. But if you learn to offer food to Krishna and receive it back as prasadam and chant Hare Krishna, you will most likely go back to Godhead in this lifetime if you follow strictly. So it solves two big problems, the hunger problem and the death problem. It's a simple solution. You don't even need land. You can sprout seeds in your backpack. Very simple way to do it. I teach people how to do that. Okay, so we see the materialist plans for life are never finished, and they go on preparing plan after plan, all of which are never finished. We have personal experience of a person of such demoniac mentality who, even at the point of death, was requesting the physician to prolong his life for 4 years more because his plans were not yet complete. Such foolish people do not know that a physician cannot prolong life even for a moment, even for 1 minute. When the notice is there is no consideration of the man's desire. The laws of nature do not allow a second beyond what one is determined to enjoy. So the duration of our lives are based on the number of breaths that we take. So Krishna knows, and Yamaraj knows, how many breaths we're going to take in each and every person's lifetime. And as soon as that number is achieved, you die. So if you go jogging every day, you might die a little sooner than if you don't go jogging. But anyway, let's just disregard that. One way or other, everybody's going to get old, get sick, and die. So if we use this life in the service of Krishna, then, like Ajamil, it could be your last death, and you go back to Godhead. So that's why this story of Ajamil is so important, and that's why even at the youngest age we should learn about Ajamil's, let's say, gradual awakening from being first he started out as a pure Brahmana boy, and then he got contaminated by seeing nonsense being done by two Sudras, a man and a woman, and then it influenced him to live the rest of his life sinfully. But at the moment of death, just because he said the name of Narayana, who was the name of his only child, a little boy, and the cow that responded to him was a gear cow, the type that we have. So, therefore, understanding the power of the holy name of the Lord is really important. That's why Lord Chaitanya emphasized chanting Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada has taught us to chant Hare Krishna and respect prasadam and regularly hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam spoken by honest and knowledgeable devotees, and going out on Sankirtan and worshiping Tulsi and all these things, so that we do not live our life in ignorance, but we can actually go back to Godhead at the end of this lifetime and solve all our problems: birth, death, old age, and disease, the three miseries of material life, the laws of karma, the influence of the gunas, the control of the time factor. All these things are making us miserable. Okay, so it continues. He says, when the notice is there is no consideration of a man's desire. The laws of nature do not allow a second beyond what one is destined to enjoy. The demoniac person, who has no faith in God or the supersoul within himself, performs all kinds of sinful activities simply for sense gratification. He does not know that there is a witness sitting within his heart. The supersoul is observing the activities of the individual soul, As it is stated in the Upanishads, there are two birds sitting in one tree. One is acting and enjoying or suffering the fruits of the branches, and the other is witnessing. But one who is demoniac has no knowledge of Vedic scriptures, nor has he any faith. Therefore, he feels free to do anything for sense enjoyment, regardless of the consequences. So this is an explanation of the English proverb, ignorance is bliss. Well, it's not really bliss, but one has a false idea that it's bliss. So as long as they're ignorant of Krishna and Krishna consciousness, they go on committing sins one after another, and all those sins condemn them to take birth again, either as a human being in a lower species or as an animal, or even lower. So it's in our interest to learn this philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam so that we don't end up being a pasu, an animal, in our next life. So the demoniac person has no faith in God or the super soul within himself, performs all kinds of sinful activities simply for sense gratification. He does not know that there is a witness sitting within his heart. So who is that witness that's seeing everything we do? His name is called Krishna. And you can buy or have your parents buy you not buy, but you can learn how to be Krishna conscious 24 hours a day, starting like Harivilas Maharaj at a very young age. And in that way, Krishna will always protect you and give you the intelligence to discriminate, to tell the difference between a good person and a bad person, and not get involved with the bad person. And always stay with the good people. That'll lead to you becoming Krishna conscious and happy. Okay. So, continuing now in text number 7, 6th chapter, 6th canto, 2nd chapter, text number 7. So texts 5 and 6 explain the position of the materialists, the people who don't believe in scriptures and sadhus and so forth. The description of them in the last paragraph of the previous verses 5 and 6 is, the people of this age are therefore described as manda sumanda matayo, manda bhagya hi upadruta. That's a verse from the 1st canto, 1st chapter of the Srimad Bhagvatam. As a consequence of such sinfulness, men are condemned, manda. Their intelligence is unclear, sumanda mataya, and they are unfortunate, manda bhagya, and therefore they are always disturbed by many problems, upadruta. This is their situation in this life, and after death they are punished in hellish conditions. Well, you don't want to end up like that, like these unfortunate people, these the mandabhagyas. They're always disturbed by many problems. Okay, so text number 7. Ajamila has already atoned for all his sinful actions. Indeed, he has atoned not only for his sins performed in one life, but for those performed in millions of lives. For in a helpless condition, he chanted the holy name of Narayana. Even though he did not chant purely, he chanted without offense, and therefore he is now pure and eligible for liberation. Well, chanting without offense, that's the goal of chanting the holy name. And then better than that is chanting of love and affection for Krishna. That's even better. So in the purport, the Yamadutas had considered only the external situation of Ajamila. Since he was extremely sinful throughout his life, they thought he should be taken to Yamaraj and did not know that he had become free from the reactions of all his sins. The Vishnudutas therefore instructed that because he had chanted the 4 syllables of the name Narayana, at this time of his death, he was freed from all sinful reactions. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura quotes the following verses from the Smriti Shastra. Namno hi yavati shakti papa nirharane hare tavat kartum nashaknoti patakam pataki nara. Simply by chanting one holy name of Hari, a sinful man can counteract the reaction of more sins than he is able to commit. Brihad Vishnu Purana. And then another verse. Avasenapi yan namni kirtite sarva patakai pumam vimuchyate sadya simha traster migair iva. If one chants the holy name of the Lord, even in a helpless condition, or without desire to do so, all the reactions of his sinful life depart, just as when a lion roars, all the small animals flee in fear. So, whether you do it purposely or unwittingly, chant the holy name, it acts. It's like fire. Whether you purposely put your hand in the fire or you accidentally put your hand in the fire, both ways you're going to get burned. So the holy name of Krishna is absolute. It'll act. Even if you don't say it sincerely, but not offensively. There are specific 10 offenses against the holy name. But if you avoid those 10 offenses and you just chant Hare Krishna sincerely for the pleasure of the Lord, it acts at that point. Okay, then the next verse. If one chants the holy name of the Lord, even in a helpless condition or without desiring to do so, all the reactions of his sinful life depart, just like when a lion roars, all the small animals flee in fear. This is a verse from the Garuda Purana. And then the last verse, by once chanting the holy name of the Lord, which consists of the 2 syllables Hari, one guarantees his path to liberation. Skanda Purana. These are some of the reasons why the Vishnu Dutas objected to the Yamadutas taking Ajamila in the court of Yamaraj. So we see that chanting Hare Krishna is the only way to attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death in this Kali Yuga. Only way. Other things may help, but chanting Hare Krishna is the super vaccine that solves all problems of life. If we're looking for a vaccine, this is the one we should look for, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, because it can solve all the problems of life. So we'll read one more verse, verse number 8. Today I have to go early to Shoreline on the 2nd and 4th Saturday of every month. We go to Shoreline, which is in a little bit north of Seattle. And there's a clinic for drug addicts there that gives them other drugs to get off of heroin and cocaine. So a lot of young people go there to get the shots, and they've seen us at least 5-6 times now. So for us, it's a great honor to be able to go there and serve prasadam to these people, boys and girls, who are trying to do the right thing, that by social work, by cleanups and serving the homeless and raising money for different purposes, so they're trying to live in a mode of goodness. But like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, most of their good work is based on the body and pleasing the body of others. So the Vishnu Dutas continued. Even previously, while eating and at other times, this Ajamila would call his son, saying, "My dear Narayana, please come here." Although calling the name of his son, he nevertheless uttered the 4 syllables Narayana, simply by chanting the name of Narayana. In this way, he sufficiently atoned for the sinful reactions of millions of lives. So, whether you do it knowingly or unknowingly, chanting Hare Krishna is beneficial. No doubt about it. Okay, and the last verse, the purport to this last verse. Previously, when engaged in sinful activities to maintain his family, Ajamila chanted the name of Narayana without offenses. To chant the holy name of the Lord just to encounter one's sinful activities, or to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name, is offensive. So it says, to chant the holy name of the Lord just to counteract one's sinful activities, or to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name, is offensive. Nam no balad yasyahi papa buddhi. But although Ajamila engaged in sinful activities, he never chanted the holy name of Narayana to counteract them. He simply chanted the name Narayana to call his son. Therefore, his chanting was effective, because there was no material motive behind it. Because of chanting the holy name of Narayana in this way, he had already vanquished the accumulated sinful reactions of many, many lifetimes. In the beginning, he was pure, but although he later committed many sinful acts, he was offenseless because he did not do. He was offenseless because he did not chant the holy name of Narayana to counteract his sinful acts. One who always chants the holy name of the Lord without offenses is always pure. As confirmed in this verse, Ajamila was already sinless, and because he chanted the name of Narayana, he remained sinless. It did not matter that he was calling his son. The name itself was effective. Well, this proves that the name of Krishna or Narayana or Rama is transcendental sound. It's not a mundane sound. And whether you do it willingly or voluntarily, or you do it accidentally, or you do it by force, you'll be purified. Your sinful reactions will be purified by the fact of taking prasadam, chanting Hare Krishna, going out of Sankirtan, and distributing books and so forth. So I'm going to give you some homework now for tomorrow. So we read Canto 6, Chapter 2, verses 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so the homework can you explain the difference between pure chanting of the holy name and impure chanting of the holy name? This is an important question, and it's covered in these verses. Explain the difference between pure chanting of the holy name and impure chanting of the holy name. And secondly, this is a question you can explain also. Traditionally in India, up until even recently, people often give their children names that are related to Krishna. Just like we have one little boy in the community, his name is Gopal Krishna. And many other kids have names that are Krishna's names or Narayana's names and so forth. So the question is, why do you think people name their children after the names of Krishna, or Rama, or Narayana, or Vishnu? Obviously, they knew something. That's why they did it. Now, you can say, well, maybe in modern times, people just keep doing it. They don't really understand why. But originally, there was a reason why. And this is explained also in the Canto 6, Chapter 2, verse number 6. So, you have 2 homeworks for tomorrow. And are there any questions? And we'll continue in the story tomorrow. I have to leave a little early today. That's why I have to cut it short. Any questions? No questions?
No.
Anybody listening?
Yeah.
Wow, great. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.